data, we see the massive spendings that rised from Russia. And also what was important for Russia, that social protests failed. So first protests in Belarus failed. Actually, Lukashenko remained in power. And in Russia, Navalny. So he started the big protests against, so he was oppositioner against Putin, but actually they also failed. And then gives the evidence that we will not see the massive protests inside of Russia, even despite its military behavior. So we can see that how smartly, to some extent, Russia was behaving and planning this operation before and planning this invasion before 2020, trying not only to behave hybridly against Ukraine, but also against West in the major context against West. And it's remind directly so-called Gerasimov doctrine. Gerasimov is, for those who don't know, he is the general of Russian army, and he is considered to be so-called the founder of this Gerasimov doctrine in 2013. However, many people told that he was not the original writer. It was named after him, but the military analysts were doing that. But please take a look on this doctrine, and especially here. So in his doctrine in 2013, the value of science in prediction, that is official name, he underlined the role of non-military means. So the non-military means are officially since 2013 become important for Russia in their military thinking. And afterwards, here, look here, the focus on the applied methods on conflict has altered in the direction of the broad use of political, economic, informational, humanitarian, and other non-military measures. Yep, just to create the protest potential of the population in other countries. In other words, what I was talking about the hybrid warfare and that complexity of this war since 2013 is officially a part of the military strategy in Russia. Yep, and that should or ought to give some chance of thinking for the number of different countries. But no, these lessons were not taken into the account. So eventually, we are coming to the February 20, 2022, so 2 days before the Russian invasion. And this is a map that Alexei Reznikov, who is a former Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, presented. So you can see that the three major armies were located in Belarus, in Russia here, and Russia here, and actually then in Crimea. So the systems were present, and after that, Russia conducted their attack on Ukraine. This is a present map of the major explosions. So with the red, you can see this is a missile strikes. These are the clashes. These are drone strikes, massive drone strikes. And this is a territory that are currently under attack. So you can see that in terms of Ukraine, and these are also missile attacks, drone attacks that Ukraine conducted against Russia. So in the major of the cases, you can see that there's practically no secure place in Ukraine. Even despite like that the front line is here, and Ukraine is a huge country. We have like more than 1,000 of kilometers from west to east. Nevertheless, it's the massive shellings are present even in my city. Like a few weeks ago, there was a massive shelling that killed the family of my student, and has two sisters and their mother. So they simply were trying to hide in the shelter, but like this, the massive ballistic missile simply crushed all the building. And the interesting fact is that there is nothing like military in the area than they lived. Nothing. There's simply buildings and medical centers there. So that's still in the process that we can see, and if you follow this map, they're updating like on this website text that's Ukrainian like media. So what is the logic? What is the logic behind this this war for Kremlin, I do believe that Kremlin has two logics. So first of that is to secure Putin's regime. And I can show you, like in the map, in the electoral support map, that every time Russia is doing aggression on the other states, the electoral support is rising. Then, to ensure financial flows, mainly from gas and oil export, Russia was testing like this Nord Stream. Russia was not planning that West will be so unified and in blocking Russia in terms of trade and bringing sanctions, and also a number of neutral states. They're also observing, and they are neutral, and we're grateful for them that they're neutral in that sense, and they're trying to limit this economic ties with Russia, and also to prevent successful stories in democratization around Russia, because Ukraine was coming to the success story with even the GDP development. So GDP per capita, we were coming to the practically the same level as Russia. That is impossible, let's say, for the country that is huge and they have so many oil and gas resources. Yeah. So just to prove you and to show it, this is the Levada Center, the sociological company in Russia that is still open, and they're conducting this research. If you believe in Russian sociology, I don't believe in Russian sociology, but we don't have nothing besides of Levada Center. So you can see this rating, Putin's approval ratings and governmental approvals ratings. And when you see the splashes of support, I can name you the dates. I can name you clearly the dates and the events that were happening here. This is like the campaign, so-called Nordost campaign after the terrorist attacks. Then we see Chechnya second war. Then this is a splash. Then here the splash of support and the decline of unsupport. This is 2008, and this is war against Georgia. 2014, this is the occupation of Crimea and of Donbass in Ukraine. And then level of support was falling down. Then you can see 2022, this is a full-scale invasion. Every time, once again, when Russia is doing like some I don't think that this is casual reason, but nevertheless we can see the clear correlation between these facts and between the support of Putin's regime. What is interesting, like in the governmental support, the situation is a little bit different, but nevertheless, once again, when we see the war that Russia started aggression, the Russians started, even the governmental support, and government is really unpopular among Russians, is growing. So once again, I will not tell that this is causation, but this is one of the reasoning, like to secure what I call the Putin's regime. But also, Kremlin has its global level logic. So first of all, Russia is continuing what is called the defensive, so-called defensive realism approach, that NATO has used this approach, for example, by increasing members of the island since 90s. So Russia is claiming that that there was some of the agreement between NATO and Russia. There was no ever agreement between NATO and Russia. This is fake news. But nevertheless, Russia is claiming that they have so-called the spheres of interests, and the NATO is bringing these spheres of interest. So they're breaking this idea that they're not fighting with Ukrainians, but they're actually fighting with NATO in Ukraine. And this is very imperialistic idea that usually, but that is why Ukrainians, you can hear or read in the news that we consider this warfare to be anti-colonial war, and that is so strange for the majority of the nations in Asia and Africa. Why Ukrainians are talking about the anti-colonial war, but in that logic it is because Russia is not recognizing the power of Ukraine to fight. So that's impossible for them, like, to recognize that they are officially fighting against NATO in Ukraine. But Ukraine is not a member of NATO. That is a problem. But also, Russia is executing this offensive realism approach, stating if NATO can, then one can't Russia strengthen itself by weakening neighboring countries that declared Euro-Atlantic inspirations. And by these countries, we definitely see that Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine declared Euro-Atlantic aspirations. And all three countries are facing conflicts and warfare that was brought by Russian allies or Russia itself. Then Russia is executing the superpowers logic of the Cold War. It's still present. And we can see in the military doctrines of Russia. So since 2000, I believe 10, if you open military doctrine, any military doctrine of Russia, there will be an article 9 and 10 or 10s where Russia officially claims like this logic of the superpowers that they are executing. And definitely Russia is trying to find its place between US and China. So trying to present it as a powerful military power because Russia is not an economic power. So Russia is only 2% of the world's GDP. It's Russian world idea. So by Joseph Nye, we can name it like the soft power is not powerful either. It's limited to the post-Soviet area to somehow. And so the only thing that left is military. The only thing that left is military. And actually, yeah, so they were thinking how, and they were aspiring to build the new Euro-Asian security that is based on the zones of interest. One again, coming to the logic, even not of the 21st century, but actually of the 20th century, of having some great powers with the zones of the interests. Okay, so what challenges that this war brings to the global security, and what is important for me to speak about? First, it's created the major refugee crisis. So you can see in the official data that UN is bringing so around 6.2 million of Ukrainians are recorded in Europe. And overall, we have almost 7 million of refugees. Mainly, these are women and children who had to run, who had to flee from Ukraine, and that's cut a lot the possibilities of the workforce. So we are lacking the workforce right now in Ukraine, and that's hit economy, and economy hits the possibility of conducting more um, war. So that is why at the beginning of this war, I was usually asked, so who will win? Or what is the factors of who will win this war? And I told the economy will win. So whose nation will sustain economy, they will win. And that's also bringing an important idea to the modern warfare, that usually we are not talking only about military, but also we are talking a lot about the economy, and especially in the conditions of the total warfare. Then you can see that a number of the basic human rights are actually neglected by Russia by this war. So we have only officially around 12,000 people killed. These numbers are about Ukrainians, not Russians, and this is not about military. These are civilians killed. Like more than 20,000 of wounded civilians, and almost 15% of our territory are occupied temporarily, hopefully, by Russia. We also see the splash of the tortures. So at least we have around 70,000 of criminal acts of rape, tortures, and kidnapping that were conducted by the Russian army. We have the full destroyment of private houses and damages of the apartment buildings. And what is important, since we have summer school and we are university students and workers, so more than 3,000 of educational institutions were suffered from bombing and shelling, and 365 of them are fully destroyed. And especially schools. So children have no ability to study, and that's called the massive flees from Eastern Ukraine to West Ukraine, and then to Europe and to the other countries. So Russia by these acts, when I'm talking this total warfare, because they're hitting not only military, as this famous Trinitarian concept of Karl von Clausewitz. So the UN agency considering like more than 7 million of people that of Ukrainian children that are under the risk. But that's what's happening for Ukraine, but it also influences the global economy. And at firstly, and what is important, Ukraine is one of the exporters of grains. You know it probably, and so that absolutely destroyed like the market of grains, and it caused a massive inflation, and still the massive inflation in the crops and grains is forecasted for the next years, and the basic needs for the food security in the number of the Asian and especially African states. So Ukraine was one of the major trader in this sphere, and the only corridor that we have this corridor in the Black Sea that the currently is working a little bit, but it's limited a lot by the Russian not fleet, because we fight this fleet, but by the Russian missiles. So that caused a great implications on the global security, and especially on the rise of prices. And also, we see that in 2022 and the 23, like 50% of the World Food Program has lost just because of this war, because Russia was also one of the exporters in that sense. So what finally, and I'm finalizing and finishing my presentation. So what challenges to the global security would actually be? First of all, that this is war. It is not classical war. This is hybrid war with the military or conventional dimension that is present, but it started long before that period. But we should understand that this is war between non-nuclear country. And that is important because we don't know the outcomes of this war, whether the nuclear power will be used. So temporarily, we see that this is one of the famous Russian propaganda things to show that they will use this nuclear power. But recently, when Ukrainians actually army came to the territory of Russia in Kursk, in the north of Ukraine, and entered Russian territory, and it was one of the red lines for Russia. So they're not fighting with nuclear power. They're not fighting for that. So probably this is just chantage, and this is one of their like narratives that they want to threaten. Then we see dysfunction of international rules, because we don't see the system of automatic punishment. If any aggressor use military power against other states, we don't see that there is some automatic punishment for this aggressor. So Ukraine was collecting like the countries, persuading them. Some of them support Russia, some of them luckily became neutral in that sense. But nevertheless, this is a challenge for the global security of what should we do, because sometimes aggressors, they feel that they can do everything. So we should create some new mechanism in the global security in the global security dimension, that when aggressor is attacking other nation, that means that we should have and should imply some automatic punishment for them. So it still need to be done, because there are risk of military dictatorship supremacy. And this war is dangerous because a number of the authoritarian regimes are observing the outcomes. And if it comes that Russia succeed, I hope it will not. But if Russia succeed, it will be the green light for military authoritarian regimes, that they can use the power of force of military to gain what they wanted, and there are no global mechanism to prevent or stop it. Later on, it also caused a major humanitarian catastrophe with outbreak of and the breaking of freedoms of Ukrainians, and causing the massive flees of Ukrainians, but also ecological catastrophe. I'm not mentioning in this speech ecological catastrophe. I'm not a specialist in that, but they're tremendously huge. On the war, if I'm not mistaken, year of war with Russia is causing the same amount um, of the pollution that than a typical European country like Slovakia or Slovenia. the same amount of pollution, only 1 year of war. Then we see the major food security challenge that currently is stable, but it's not fixed, especially when we see once again the temperature rose and the climate challenges. So there is still a question for the number of the Asian and African countries. And finally, what is important for me that even if we reach peace agreement, because sometimes even the neutral countries are saying just reach a peace agreement, the danger of the hybrid warfare, as we political scientists and conflict scientists are talking, that even if you reach agreement in the conventional dimension, it doesn't mean that you'll reach agreement in all the other dimensions. And we are not sure that if we settle the conventional or the military dimension, Russia will not do like the aggression in the other dimensions. And actually, these ongoing conflicts, these ongoing wars that Russia caused in Moldova, in Chechnya, in Georgia, in Syria are showing that case. So when Russia starts aggression, it's still present. It's not fixed because it's very complex, and not only military domain is present in this field. So so what should we do? What should we do in that sense? And I'm finishing with that. So we need to think about the international institutions that can regulate like this fear, especially with the automatic punishment. Also that we need to rethink also UN-based international security. Regional-based islands of security that are created under the Karl Deutsch idea of the regional security, or values-based islands of security. So even if you are not in region, but for example, we share with Indonesia the same ideas about the global security, the same values, the same right to be protected, so that they need to be executed. So we need to think about values in the global domain that we can unite, even despite we are so different in the many of the aspects and have different interests. So we need to find the common values. So the changing nature of warfare that we need to regulate, the absences of the punishment, and also we need to observe the danger of growth of the autocracies, and especially military autocracies that they can done. So I just want to finish with the quote that will not be popular about Indonesians, but I like this quote about Antony Blinken when he was visiting Ukraine before the war. He told the very nice thing that we need to think how to prevent that the narrow interests of some state could go ahead of the shared interests of international security. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Dumitro. I would like to express my deepest condolence for what just happened in this beginning of September in Lviv, in which the Russian missile claims the life of seven civilians, including a mother and three daughters. I would like to express my deepest condolence because there are so many civilians that have to lose their life because of this, I think, unnecessary war actually. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
so I think there are already a lot of participants who would like to ask the question through the meeting chat, but let's save it for the last session. After this, we will welcome Dr. Maxim to deliver his speech. But before that, I would like to read the Dr. Maxim's biography. Please, the committee, could you present it? Thank you very much. As for the second speaker for today, we will have Dr. Maxim Yakoviak from the National University of Kiev Mohila Academy. I apologize if there are mispronunciation. So, Dr. Maxim Now, currently, he is the head of Department of International Relations in the Faculty of Social Science and Technologies. And also, he is currently the member of Public Council at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. And he also have he also has various experience in the academic field, as well as many works in academic publication. And I believe that today we will have a very good discussion regarding the current situation in Ukraine. So without further ado, Dr. Maxim Yakovlev, the time is yours for the next 60 minutes.
Mas Maula, terima kasih banyak. Saya mulai belajar bahasa Indonesia dan pada awalnya saya ingin mengatakan beberapa kata dalam bahasa Indonesia. Oke. Terima kasih banyak telah mendungkan saya untuk berbicara tentang perang Rusia melawan Ukraina. Saya berharap bahwa inisiatif ini dapat menjadi langkah awal dalam kerjasama antara dua universitas kami. Saya juga ingin meminta maaf, saya harus pulang lebih awal karena saya harus mengajar kelas 15-20 menit lebih awal. So thank you very much for hosting me, and it is a great pleasure to speak to Indonesian audiences. Unfortunately, I had not the pleasure of visiting your university in person. Sorry for any mistakes in my Bahasa Indonesia. Your language is wonderful. It is not that easy. If somebody tells you that Bahasa Indonesia is easy, it's not true. Your language is wonderful and complicated. It's my pleasure to try to study it. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Terima kasih also on my side for organizing this event, and I'm really looking forward to our maybe institutional cooperation, as I said, between our universities. I have to say that recently I even published a piece. I do understand that Indonesia has many things going on, and about your Peringatan Darurat Indonesia, I was following the news from Indonesia. You are a very active society. I had the pleasure of spending 3 weeks this year in Indonesia. I really like your country. It's very diverse, and this Indonesia Darurat Demokrasi protest. I understand that this is your internal issue, but what we hear from Ukraine is that your society is very active, that young people are also very active in defending democracy, in fighting, maybe sometimes too much, I don't know, this is your internal issue, but from Ukraine it was very interesting to follow what is going and how active Indonesian society is. So that was very interesting. Okay, so as I said, I would have to leave a bit earlier because I mixed up the time and I have to teach class in person in Kiev, but I hope we will continue our cooperation. Now,
Sir, sorry, is it possible? It's okay if you leave early, 20 minutes early, but is it possible for you to stay on the Zoom because we need the screenshot of the attendance for the until the last session.
Okay, I will connect from my phone then. Okay,
Thank
I will
you very much,
reconnect
sir.
from my phone. Yeah, terima
Thank you
kasih
very
for your
much.
understanding. Okay, okay. So I will now continue to the slides because Dr. Shanowski mentioned many things that I would also repeat, but I would do in a bit of another style from my presentation. Okay. And I think the main thing that I would like, I will scroll like this because you could see the next and upcoming slides. So I think when talking about the war in Ukraine, it is always a pleasure to talk about it to the Indonesian audience because Indonesia is one of the rarest countries in the world where it says then that penjajahan harus dihapuskan. This is in the preamble of your constitution. And it shows that your country, because Dmytro Sharanovsky said that Ukraine is huge. Compared to Indonesia, we're very small. You are really huge and big country and very, so I always make this joke. Is for some reason, Indonesia decides to block a couple of straits in the sea, half of the world trade will stop the next day. So Indonesia is truly a powerful country. And is a country that can help, and it's still helping a lot in fighting imperialism and abolishing imperialism all over the globe. So that would be one of the messages I would like to say. Okay, so let's say I'm going to be very visual in many respects and telling things that sorry for maybe repeating some things that Dmytro Chernovsky said, but for the first, the war started as a real war. And I have to say that for Ukraine, it was a bit unexpected. I do remember well the talks that if Russians are going to invade, they are not going to bomb the cities. So that was a belief in Ukraine because we are neighboring countries, we share the legacy of the Soviet Union. But on the other hand, Ukraine has the experience of being colonized by Russia. Russia is our colonizer mainly. And I do understand that this is about a bit different to colonization done by European powers to non-European powers. In Europe, we have this situation where Russia colonized its neighbors, both Asian peoples and also us in the European part closer to Russia. So our first belief of this war, and Dmytro Chernovsky mentioned there should be also mechanisms, and I'm also going to touch about mechanisms that should be there. So the war started with real Russians bombing cities. Dmytro mentioned that Lviv, the city in the west, was bombed. Kyiv is bombed much more often because we are the capital of Ukraine. So first, it was an unexpected, nobody expected that Russia was going to bomb the cities. It's continue its shelling. So just because if there is going to be alert alarm, just be warned that this also happens in Ukraine and we have a lot of problems. This is one of the first shellings of a residential building in Kyiv 2 years ago on the very first day on invasion. This is to give you an example, okay? This is from February this year, an example of the shelling of residential buildings, because there are a couple of types of shellings. Once a building can be hit by a drone, and the problem is that Russia now buys also drones from Iran, for example. They help and assist with drones. And sometimes it can be a missile. Missile is much more difficult to target and shoot down. And I really like this picture. Why? Because when I was in Indonesia, it is for the first time that I saw huge flags of Palestine all across. I was in Denpasar, I was in Surabaya, I was in Yogyakarta, of course in Jakarta, and I saw many, many flags supporting Palestine. And I saw that if you look at this picture, it really looks like somewhere in Gaza. But actually, this is 10 minutes walk from my house. 10 minutes walk from where I live in Kyiv, there is a children's hospital for children who suffer from serious illnesses. And it was directly hit with a missile, July this year. It was a huge catastrophe for us in Kyiv. And this is another example. And I will show you a report by the United Nations, which says, it's not me, Ukrainian, inventing, that Russian troops are targeting hospitals in Ukraine and medical facilities, okay? So this is to give you a general context. We in Ukraine also did not expect this war. I know people who live close to the front line. They say, okay, Russians are going to take our city. They're not going to bomb us. They're going to invade. We will live under occupation. That's it. So that is not what happened. So for the first time in many, many years, there's a full-fledged, full-scale war going in Europe with Russians really hitting the cities. We're also in Ukraine. We're happy. And this is, you can see Indonesia here. So Indonesia was among the countries. And by voting in the United Nations General Assembly, I'm happy to say that Indonesia is against wars of aggression. As you can see here, there was one of the first. This is resolution condemning Russia for its aggression against Ukraine and Indonesia. You can see here on the map, on the voting results, that your country voted in support of this resolution. So I'm glad that Indonesia, not only by the principle declared in your preamble to your constitution, but also by its act, condemning the aggression. But the problem is, and this is what also Dr. Chernovsky mentioned, is that one thing you do condemn and you understand that this is not right, to invade a neighboring country, to bomb cities, to hit. And we also know that this is happening all around the globe. I mentioned Gaza and the case of Israel. There are other parts of the world where things like that. Syria is at war. You've heard what happened with this pager explosions in Lebanon recently. So there are many things and many atrocities around the globe. But the good question is how you should fight back and if there are any mechanism to somehow target this. So this problem is full-fledged. And one of the idea is, I would like to mention that, is we are living in the world of hybrid warfare. So one of the problem of the hybrid warfare is the influence on information and how you control the information streams, okay? How you control the messages and how you spread the propaganda. It is interesting that I have to admit as a Ukrainian that Russia is very advanced in spreading propaganda, in spreading fake news, in undermining the very basics of democracy around the globe. And It is really a dictatorship which controls the flow of information, and that is very, very scary. So this is something we need to fight back. I put here two things. On the right, there is this traditional Russian doll. You know, there's one, this is wooden doll. One is put into another thing, kind of. And it says, you know, it says like vampire teeth, you know, sharp vampire teeth, showing that Russia, and this is one of the things I would like to say now, Russia uses Russian culture, literature, it uses ballet dancing, it uses sports as a mean to influence public opinion. On the other hand, it also uses propaganda. So in Ukraine, we are making this joke. We know, you know, that Zelensky, our president, he's ethnically speaking Jew. And so Ukraine is really diverse. So we are in Ukraine, we are predominantly Orthodox, so Christian Orthodox. We have only 1% Muslims, but our Minister of Defense is a Muslim. We have also like very small percentage of Jews, below 1% probably, or something around that. But our president, Zelensky, is ethnically speaking a Jew, which is not a problem for Ukraine, to have a Muslim Minister of Defense and to have a president. So the Russian, I like this saying. So according to Kremlin propaganda, Kremlin, you know, is the government part of Moscow. The Kremlin, Ukraine is now a Jewish-led, gay, Islamist, neo-Nazi, Satanist state. Everything went together. It is half a joke. Why it's half a joke? Because if you follow Russian propaganda, you can definitely see that we are, for example, they accuse Crimean Tatars. You know that in Indonesian, there is a book, small book, published Islam in Crimea by Yanuar de Shukur. When I was in Jakarta, I visited Paramadina University at the presentation of this book. It is both in English and in Bahasa Indonesia, so I advise to read it because Crimea is a part of Ukraine and Crimean Tatars are part of Ukraine and they are Muslims, of course. I know that Indonesia, when they showed the slide, they said that masjids, they look like the mosques in Turkey, similar style of mosques. To refer to that. But anyway, so Russian propaganda claims that our Crimean Tatars, who are Muslims, they are all Islamists. We need to fight them back. And this is the problem with Russian Islamophobia, especially in Crimea and against Ukrainians. Another thing is that we are somehow managed to be both neo-Nazis and gay state. I don't know how you can combine that all together, okay? And on top of that, you have the Satan and Satanist rituals and things. So this is really insanity of Russian propaganda. But because Russia has income from oil, gas, and all the stuff, it can spread lies. It can spread a lot of propaganda, and this is like horrifying. So we are happy in Ukraine that slowly, European colleagues in Western Europe, they are realizing that there are two things. One thing is freedom of speech. Another thing is freedom of spreading propaganda. And you know, there's two things that can be very, very harmful if by using the pretext of spreading like fake news, this is my free. I think that nobody should have the freedom to harm other people on purpose. I think that should be punished. So there must be some mechanisms involved into doing that. And our also problem with Russia in many respects, I think you follow the Paris Olympics that played, and Russia was allowed to participate under the neutral flag. But even there were sportsmen and sportswomen who actually, and this is interesting, supported Putin's aggression against Ukraine, Russian war against Ukraine. And this is very bad. So to sum up these 2 points, first, this is a full-scale war, which we Ukrainians did not expect. We never believed that Russians would deal with us like that they would treat us like that they would bomb the cities, bomb children's hospital in the almost third year of the war. So this is something totally unexpected for us, Ukraine. But we're happy to say that Indonesia, as many other middle powers and states, are against this aggression. But what can we do about it, especially when Russia spreads propaganda, is another topic and a very interesting one, I should say. Okay, a couple of other pictures. What is even more scary is how Russia, the population of Russia and the situation and condition within Russia itself. I will come back to that point later, but to say generally, I would say that, you know, that Russians, they use the Z symbol as the symbol of aggression against Ukraine. And in order to support this aggression, you can see small children put on their knees holding the Z symbol. I think this is, I think it's not normal, okay? So I wouldn't, please correct me if I'm wrong, But I would not expect that any kindergarten in Indonesia would put children on their knees to make Garuda symbol or something. That would not be acceptable, because this is something very strange. You normally don't do that. Okay, so but this is like Russia uses this war as a pretext to have influence on its growing up population, school children doing Z symbols, or even here, take a look. I think this is insanity of Russian idea that we need to support this war by all means possible. One of my topics is here is that this war is also a chance for Russia to change itself. Okay, in Indonesia, as we saw, you can. When I was in Indonesia this year in spring. I mean, our European spring, of course. Sorry, and I saw that in Indonesia there are many protests going in Jakarta on different occasions, small, bigger one. Now, as I said, you had this. With Indonesia, Darurat Demokrasi, many more protests anyway. So you have the right to protest. Sometimes violent, so it's for you up to decide how you protest, but still there is the freedom of expression. In Indonesia, you have a very vibrant society. Please take a check. How many protests were there in Russia recently for the last couple of years? The answer is zero, or very close to zero. Even one person holding a blank, like this, white paper, is arrested for provocation, and this is happening all over Russia. So our thing is, in Ukraine, we're saying that Russia is our neighbor anyway. So what is going in Russia because of this war is also that we Ukrainians are paying attention to, and we want also all the world to understand that this war, if Russia loses this war, is also a chance for Russia to change. I think the Russian nation and many nations within Russia, because Russia, as you know, is a federation, it consists of many republics, and these republics are ethnically diverse. Not all of them are ethnic Russians. So this is another issue. This war of Ukraine, especially when Russians, especially Putin's regime, is really almost totalitarian now. It is a chance for Russia to change. I would like to show you a couple of other examples of protests that we have. These are the people who were taken from different cities, Berdyansk and Melitopol, and one exception is Kherson, that is liberated. People in the Ukrainian cities, when Russians invaded and occupied these cities, were really courageous enough to go on the streets with Ukrainian flags to say that they're Ukrainians, they want to live. For example, this is in Russian, this is not in Ukrainian. On my right, you say, occupiers, so those who came to occupy Melitopol, go home. Get out of our city of Melitopol. Melitopol is in the southeast of Ukraine. So they really want them out of Ukraine, and they were courageous enough to go on the street. So this is a type of Ukrainian protest, and this shows that another thing of Russian propaganda, this part of Ukraine is half Ukrainian speaking, predominantly Ukrainian, some considerable amount of Russian speaking population. In Ukraine, the language you speak does not define your nationality, because there is a part of Ukrainians whose first language is Russian because of the colonial heritage. So this is one of the things that is very important. And of course, you know, these flags and taking down Russian flags. Just a side note, when I was in Surabaya, I visited the hotel where after the Second World War, the Dutch flag was put down, took away the white color and made the Indonesian. So this is an example of how courageous the Indonesians, so your nation was in fighting against your colonizer and insisting on. So in that respect, Surabaya made a great impression on me, how courageous Indonesians were in fighting back the colonizers. But you know, what struck me the most is also with this war, is the question, how come the Netherlands and the Dutch basically, why they thought that Indonesians would welcome them back after the Second World War, after the Japanese occupation? So what should be in people's mind that you Indonesians, your nation, would welcome your colonizers back after another colonizer is gone? Insanity. So for me as a Ukrainian, it's still insanity. Why Russia would not leave Ukraine in peace? Just, we are a European country. We have always been part of Russia. By European standards, we are not a small country. After Russia, we are the largest country situated fully in Europe. So the idea we Ukrainians want, as it says here on the slide with people in Melitopol, just leave us in peace. We don't want you back here as a, you know, Soviet Empire, Russian Empire, and just leave us in peace. Exactly. So for me, I do understand that must be an explanation why the Dutch came back after the Japanese, but I don't see any logical explanation, because the world has changed. Soviet Union has collapsed, and the best thing we can do is leave other countries in peace. Decide what we want to do. If we want to join the European Union or not, it's our question. It's not for for Moscow to decide what Ukraine should do. I mean, this is the basic idea. And this is also the idea of colonialism and imperialism. When you dictate other nations, when you make them dependent on your decision, okay? So to sum up this part, it's like geopolitical and situation going into Ukraine, some things that are really showing that the current world order is not functioning properly. So how do we know? If we Ukrainians say, of course, I would just come back to this slide, when residential areas are bombed by missiles, when hospitals are bombed by missiles, it is not normal. So it is out of question. So, and as I said, I live very close, like 10 minutes walk from this location. It is very, so you condemn and you say, but another indicator that Russia is committing war crimes. So one thing I would like to refer you to, this is horrible, just horrible. And this is a situation where it shows disparity between the democratic world and how we treat prisoners of war and how Russia treats prisoners of war. These are horrible pictures. For us, in Europe, it really resembles the Second World War Nazi German concentration camps, or how Russia treats our prisoners of war. I don't know. So this is actually highlight is taken. I've already sent the slides, so you can refer to all the materials. They're in English. So according to United Nations reports, the Ukrainian prisoners of war are enduring severe torture. So according to the report, I'm just reading from the slides, Russian forces beat prisoners, use stun guns to administer electric shocks, force prisoners to stand in painful positions for long periods, expose them to cold by making them walk naked and barefoot outside during winter. In several facilities, prisoners had to stand still in their cells all day, leading to inflammation and swollen legs. So this is like an example, and the report, there are many, many reports of that, and this is not Ukrainian reports, this is United Nations reports, okay, on what is going on to the Russian prisoners, so the Ukrainian, prisoners of war. In Ukraine, there is a debate because we treat Russian prisoners of war according to Geneva Convention, and our German, Polish, French, British colleagues, they all have access to these prison camps, and they see how Russian prisoners are kept in Ukraine. And always in Ukrainian news, when you see the exchange of prisoners, there are people like we see here on this slide. You see this, I mean, this is really people from concentration camps. And Russian soldiers, prisoners of war, return to Russia, you can see the contrast. So in Ukrainian society, the discussion, we feed the Russian prisoners of war soldiers, we treat them, medical treatment, everything possible. We are Ukrainians controlled by the British, German, Polish, blah, blah, all the countries that support us, that give us basically money to sustain the country. And how come Russians, a big country, Russia, with all the humanistic kind of traditions, you know, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, great culture, how come Russia treats our prisoners of war like that? This is not acceptable, and this is not normal. There must be some customs of war that should be kept. And you know, there's Geneva Convention that should be sustained. I mean, there are many questions. And we in Ukraine, we don't see an answer to that. Another thing from this is a direct quote from a former prisoner of war from the Ukrainian side. There was very little time to eat and only 5 spoons for all of us. We made makeshift spoons from light fixtures. You had to eat quickly because of the line. To swallow anything, you had to keep picking out the pebbles. You could only manage about 2 spoonfuls of porridge. We also got a piece of bread in the morning and in the evening. If you feed people like that, these are the results, okay? So this is another question. So how can we put pressure on Russia? Or not just, let me say it another way. If there is a powerful nation which has nuclear weapons, which decides to invade its neighboring country, to hit with missiles its hospitals, its residential areas, and if it treats prisoners of war from that country like that, what should be the mechanisms to make this country keep up to the rules of how you should keep the prisoners of war? I don't believe that Russia has no money to feed prisoners of war. Russia has money to send missiles. These missiles, they cost millions of dollars. And this is like something that is insane, and we need to fight back. Another thing, which is even more horrible, is sexual violence. And this is another report by United Nations. This is a report from the last year because we're still approaching the end of the year 2024. This is the report from the previous year. Again, I'm going to read it to you. So we have example. This is report. So these are documented. It means that these are the proven cases, okay? There are cases that have been not documented. People, not always, especially men and women as well, not always tell the truth that they were raped. So the United Nations Human Rights Monitoring Mission, Ukraine, states that it has data on 52 men, 31 women, and 2 minors who suffered from war-related sexual violence in 2023. or 2023. These crimes were committed against both civilians and prisoners of war. Okay, read again a couple of points. In particular, the report states that in most of the documented cases where the victims were adult men, sexual violence was used as a method of torture in Russian captivity. So again, this is insane, but sexual violence as a method of torture in Russian captivity. This is not normal, okay? And this is, again, sorry, jumping back. Russia accuses us Ukrainians of being gay neo-Nazi state, but they Russians use sexual violence against men as a mean of torture. So let me say, who is gay Nazi in that respect? I mean, if you are making these jokes about Ukrainians, but question, because they use it. I mean, in addition to rape itself, it includes threats of rape, electric shocks and mutilation of genitals and breasts, threats of castration, forced undress and nudity. 6 women were documented to have been raped in the territories temporarily occupied by Russia. These are documented. I repeat, because the case, just imagine that there are also cases that are not documented. And mutilation of genitals and cutting off the genitals. These are crazy stuff going on. I mean, and there must be something done about it. Also, report presents that the United Nations Security Council noted that since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the United Nations has registered more than 1,000 attacks on medical facilities. Dear colleagues, I repeat, more than 1,000 attacks on medical facilities, which has further complicated access to care for rape victims. In December last year, the monitoring mission and its partners prepared a report on the fact that Russian troops are deliberately using the healthcare system to control the civilian population in the occupied territories of Ukraine. So again, I repeat, this is United Nations report. It's not we Ukrainians invented this report. And I also refer to these documents for you to be able to understand the thing of where that is going on now. So this is the thing that we need to take into account. And of course, another thing is that countries, especially Russia, which is a part of the United Nations Security Council. So my question in Indonesia was always, my students asking, how come, I mean, Indonesia is huge by population, the 4th country in the world, like how many, 17,000 islands, very important straits. How come countries like Indonesia, South Africa, Brazil are not permanent members of United Nations Security Council? I mean, this is logically, how come middle powers, even big regional powers like Indonesia, Brazil, South, how come these countries are not part of the international security architecture with all the rights that Chinese, Russians, French, British have? I mean, this is also a good question. So when I say, because I traveled before going to Indonesia, I traveled to South Africa. I know that South Africa is very active in the case against Israel in the international court. Yes, so they're very active in the international arena, the big deal. Indonesia has also a lot of support for victims of the war of aggression, which is also very good. But including countries, nations like yours into this world architecture would bring more diversity and also possibility to somehow influence the aggressor more. Because what Russia sometimes says, okay, maybe the Western countries, they don't like it, but other countries in the global south, so-called global south. I dislike this term because the countries, you cannot put a labor global south on the half of the world. I mean, it is also insane. It is another problem with how we define the parts of the world. But anyway, just referring to that. That's why I believe as a Ukrainian that world architecture of security needs to be changed and changed dramatically to include new members and also to include countries that are powerful and very important, like Indonesia, like Brazil, like South Africa, many other. I mean, this is, I mean, from my Ukrainian perspective, this is logical. Because why? Because also Security Council of United Nations needs to have countries that know what it's like to be colonized and know what it's like to fight your colonizer. It is another thing. I mean, especially in Southeast Asia, there are many examples and good examples of nation building that can be brought back. Just a side note, because I mentioned Bahasa Indonesia, which I'm trying to learn by my own. And I really, you have a wonderful language. My problem with Indonesia is words are so different to any language I know. When I was in Indonesia and I wanted to tell about my position, I thought, okay, now not to mix up kelapa with kepala. Because for me, it sounds very similar, and saying that I'm head of department is a bit of challenge. Okay, but anyway, so Indonesia, for example, a good example of introducing Bahasa Indonesia as the national language, which is a solution to many questions. So you have we have it in textbooks. In Ukraine, when you study language politics and language policies, Example of Bahasa Indonesia is always there as a good example of nation building via language, for example. So this is just to throw in some example of how experience of other countries is important in the global context. Okay. Now, regarding this thing, another issue. This is our representative, Ukraine Ambassador Serhiy Kislitsa, during the United Nations Security Council. He reads the book with a very nice title, What's Wrong with Diplomacy? Sorry, What's Wrong with Diplomacy? I like the title of the book. Kerry Brown, he was Russia's ambassador. Kerry Brown is the author, and Russia's ambassador is speaking when our ambassador is reading this book. Of course, you understand that this is part of the diplomatic performance. Russia's ambassador speaks, and our Ukrainian ambassador reads the book, which says, What's Wrong with Diplomacy? It was on the 29th of March, 2022. So it was a very good example of how Ukrainian diplomacy raises issue. What is really wrong with diplomacy? How come diplomacy nowadays works like that? Of course, you might have heard that diplomacy, we can consider that diplomacy was not very successful because there are some issues raised and they were not solved by other things. Wait, sorry, I see there are many questions here. There are many things going on in the chat. Okay, I will come back to the chat a bit later. Okay, so anyway, so it's an interesting book, by the way, and one thing I would like to quote from that book, I would like to put it on the app. So what's wrong? I like the solution. It's very interesting. I don't know, maybe Mas Maula, you can tell me if our ambassador Vasil Hamyanian visited your university, because I know that he's very active. And our ambassador, he's very outspoken and he's really great. I met him personally last time. We had ASEAN Celebration Day organized by the Embassy of Indonesia and Embassy of Vietnam. And I met His Excellency Indonesian Ambassador to Ukraine. He's also Mr. Arif, he's very active. It was very interesting. And now I met our ambassador to Indonesia, who's also very active. So, I mean, we have effective ambassadors. But the suggestion in this book, what's wrong with diplomacy, and again, I'm going to, just to read from the slide, is that how come we do not understand many things that are going on around the world? Sorry for messing up. Is when people and embassies need to understand the context and the countries that they live in and they work. So it is very good that the author, Kerry Brown, suggests that the remedy suggested in the book is that the embassies and diplomatic posts need to become more like think tanks. So basically, in order to understand the country in the context, you need to think globally. You need also to take into account the local context. That's why studying languages is, of course, very important. That's why understanding local culture and its diversity is very important. I mean, all these things are taken together is interestingly important for understanding countries and what is going on. For example, I have to say that from our Ukrainian perspective, even the embassies of the Western European countries that were present in Russia, they did not estimate realistically how much influence Putin had on its people, how much Russians were oppressed outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg, another question. So how much Russians were ready to start a war against Ukraine. So underestimation, not good analysis of what was going on, is one of the things that enabled Russia to start this war. Okay, so there are, of course, leading think tanks. I know in Indonesia, I had the very good pleasure of speaking at the foreign policy community of Indonesia. I met two of your distinguished former ambassadors, older gentlemen, those interested. I participated in discussion there. And I know that Indonesia, this is an example. I also visited Habibie Center in Jakarta. They also do the research. So I do understand that Indonesia also vibrant expert community, which is very important. So my general position here is in order to understand Russia, other aggressors, and things like aggression or acts of violence against other countries, nations, imperialism that I mentioned, we need to put more effort into analyzing countries. Our embassy should strengthen its potential as think tanks in analyzing things. That's why actually studying Hubungan International at universities is very important. We need to understand that. And it's great that that your university has this panel inviting us Ukrainians to speak. Of course, you're also very welcome to our Ukrainian events, and hopefully one day we'll be able to visit Ukraine as well. So this is the point. What's wrong with diplomacy is that in order to have good diplomacy, in order to be able to influence countries, we need first to understand them. And this is an idea that we Ukrainians say that many people still, many nations in the world still don't understand Russia and what Russia is, okay? And listening to Russians about Ukraine would be something like after the Second World War. If I wanted to know something about Indonesia, I would not ask you directly, but I would go to Belanda and ask the Dutch colleagues what they think about Indonesia. Now, that would be also crazy. This would not make much sense, okay? Now, there are good nations and countries that support the Ukrainian cause. I would also refer, for example, to the speech of Kenyan representative to the United Nations, Martin Kimani, and the Kenyan position on it. It was very good because Kenya and Kenyan diplomats, they very well understand what imperialism means. And the basic idea of the speech there was that when dead empires want to, like, renew themselves and want to, like, bring up the issue of how they influence the world, or redrawing borders. I love this point, redrawing borders. The Kenyan representative said, okay, in Africa, we're not satisfied with the borders. I think you also saw the African map. At some places, the borders are just like, straight lines, which really does not correspond to any actual distribution of the people there, of the nations, of the language group. It's just like arbitrarily by the former colonizers. So, and he said, imagine we in Africa would redraw borders, what that would happen. Still, there are many wars going on. And if we started to play this imperial game of, like, redrawing borders, nothing good will happen to our country. So this is something that is very important. So this is an interesting idea that we can also take perspectives like of the African continent on how they suffer after colonialism and imperialism. So how the situation, neo-colonial situation, is present there. What is the African position on the former empire? So this is an interesting point we have to take into account, and maybe that would also help us to understand the Russian invasion of Ukraine better, if we take an African perspective, which is not even obvious to Ukraine. Okay, since I need to leave Dan early, I would like make my presentation a bit shorter, but there's a couple of points that I would like to summarize and to pay attention to, not very visual, but this is... So first thing is, who can do what on international arena? Why is that we Ukrainians are so, like, insisting on saying that aggressor must be punished? It is not okay that Russia does it. Because if one country like Russia, powerful state with nuclear weapons, invades another country and goes unpunished, now what, as an example, would other countries take? So it creates a very wrong precedent. I mean, it's really explains that if you can do things like that, if you can blackmail the world by your nuclear weapon, and you can do things like that, we really have to provide a system of international security where countries are limited in their possibilities to invade or attack countries, neighboring countries. So this is a very important question, and I don't have a ready-made answer how to provide for that. But we understand that with Russia, for example, German solution was change via trade, Wandel durch Handel in German, and it never worked actually. So just you trade with Russia, you accept Russia into our club of developed countries, and that will help us prevent Russia from acts of aggression. No, it did not help. I mean, trading is not the only solution. For the region, like, for example, trade in China and China's position in the seas, especially creating artificial islands, local disputes in the region, territorial disputes. This is an example what can happen when you just take trade and don't pay attention to other things. I mean, there's a potential for conflicts in the region because of the Chinese position. And not only the trading with China will help China, will prevent, China from doing anything stupid, not sure. On the other hand, also make China a demonic nation is also not the solution. So there must be something that, I mean, there must be a world order in which the scope and mechanisms of action should be somehow limited, and prevention mechanisms should be there. The role of international organizations, okay? So in Ukraine, we're making a lot of jokes that the only thing the United Nations can do as an organization is expressing deep concerns, okay? Expressing deep concerns about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, deep concerns about what's going on in Gaza, deep concerns, many things, Syria, I mean, you name it, Sudan, many parts of the world that are suffering from different wars and stuff. Okay, then the good question is, what should we do to those international organizations? Would it make world safer if we just abolish the United Nations? I don't think so. So if we should make reform to the international organization, as I said, this organization should be more diverse, to have voices from other parts of the world. I repeat, especially countries that know what it's like to fight colonizers, to get rid of the Western imperialism, how to build your own nation. I think this experience is very important. Secondly, international organizations, and I will say it later on, like democracy, they need to be strong. They need to have mechanisms to act. Just sit and discuss is a good idea. Okay, but if you have no instruments to take practical actions to help those who suffer, we're all living in an insecure world. I think you understand what it means. In Ukraine, I can show you. This is like a minute of advertisement. I published a book in Ukrainian. It's very close to me here. So this book is called Conspiracy Theories. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, you can see it. It is Conspiracy Theories, the book of conspiracy theories. One of the jokes I make in this book is that in the United States, there is one conspiracy that we Ukrainians don't understand. Maybe you also heard of this conspiracy. The conspiracy goes like this, that United Nations are taking over the globe. The real rulers are, I don't know, these reptiloids or reptiles. Reptile people are the real ruler of the world. Now in Ukraine, we go, come on, please. United Nations, they could not prevent Russia from invading us. If somebody rules this world, this person should be fired because he is doing his job badly. If those people like reptiloids or some, I don't know, aliens somehow are ruling this planet, we should all fire them and hire new managers because those are people. So the goals, and okay, half of the joke, what I'm saying is that the role of international organizations should be, for the first, more important, more proactive. This organization should have mechanisms to somehow deal with. I don't have ready-made answers how we should do that. But if we decide just to get rid of the United Nations like that, I don't think that we'll be the better off. Maybe creating something new by reforming the United Nations might be a solution. Let's see. As I said, I don't have a really ready-made answer, but we should think about it. Okay. The Cold War mentality as a worldview, and it really fails to explain the world today. Now, if we compare Russia and the United States, we have to admit that Russia is not as powerful as the Soviet Union used to be. Soviet Union, apart from Russia, also contained other republics. Totally, there were like 15. And there was also Warsaw Pact with countries in Central Eastern Europe. They were also part of the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact was kind of alternative to NATO. It is no longer there, basically. So Russia don't have that resources. Russia has a GDP, for example, of Italy. And it's interesting, Italy is much smaller. Russia has much more resources. It's another thing, and I repeat this issue. In Ukraine, we believe that this war is truly a chance for Russia to change itself. We're giving Russians an opportunity to get rid of Putin, to build a stronger democracy, to use its resources. It's a big country with diamonds, gold, oil, everything, you name it. And people there are suffering and live in poor conditions. How come? And nations within Russia are oppressed. On Instagram, there is a very interesting group. It is in Russian. It's called Asians of Russia, where non-Slavic, non-European nations of Russia share their experience of how they are oppressed, how they are discriminated. And this is something that is not normal in the world of today. Okay. Then Putin travels to Asian countries when in Russia itself, Asian nations are oppressed. It is not normal. Okay. So one thing about the Cold War mentality is that there is Great Russia and there is America. Now world has not only Russia, it has China as a strong potential power. Okay. Other nations, okay, we cannot compare them, of course, to Russia, China, and the United States, but there are powerful regional actors that should also be taken into account. There are also regional initiatives, which is also should be taken into account. So just to see world as black and white, saying Russia against the Soviet Union, because Soviet Union is not Russia nowadays. I mean, this is not comparable. It is wrong. We have to understand that world now is very diverse. And Cold War mentality limits the diversity of the world, saying these are capitalists, these are socialists or communists, they fight with each other. Come on, please. We do understand that many European countries would be declared socialist because of the social standards and things like that. And not a single country has really, I know, classical capitalism, if you name it, because there are social standards. There is the way like to pay pensions, high taxation, and stuff like that. So this is another thing, which would also very important. Okay. Let's continue further on. how the world today is truly divided, what are the new cleavages? We need much more studies into that. So once we do understand that the cultural developments, the ideological developments of the world today are not comparable with what used to be. We are living in a totally different world now. And to study new cleavages, it's more important. I think it's wrong to say that religion is the issue, that cleavage is the word. So my experience in Indonesia, because I traveled for the first time during Ramadan to a predominantly Muslim country, I can tell you nobody oppressed me. I am a Christian. I went to Indonesia. I also went to Denpasar, to two universities, to Udayana and to Universitas Bali Internasional. Nobody, no Hindu or Indonesian Christian or Muslim or predominantly Muslim. I went, as I said, to Islamic universities, but nobody oppressed me as a Christian. So I don't think that for Indonesia, there is a cleavage in religion in like oppressing foreigners. I wouldn't say that. Okay, so I don't say, because it is a very black and white picture when they say these countries are Christian, these countries are Muslim. Every country can cooperate. If you respect human rights, if you respect tradition, it's possible to cooperate. So this is not the cleavage. A cultural cleavage, that might be the case because there are different traditions that should be respected. There are different local customs that should also be taken into account, and not the whole world should be uniformly ruled by a single set of rules. I think the most important is respect for human rights, for human dignity, and taking into account the local context. But still, as I said previously from Kislitsa's book, Kislitsa was reading this book by Carrie Brown, we need to make embassies and diplomatic missions more like think tanks to analyze what is acceptable, what is not in different contexts and different world, okay? Next thing about this war, what it brings it, is that democracies need to be strong and able to defend themselves. What do I mean by defending themselves? It is many European countries were not ready to fight a war against Russia, and still not ready, because they thought, oh, we trade with Russia, Russia would never start the war because it doesn't pay off. No, democracy, you need to protect democracy by different things. If you think that let's say not Indonesia, any country in the world, if citizens of this country believe that changes to the local election laws are wrong, and your deputies don't listen to you, you go to protest. Like not Indonesia, any other country. If there is like changes to the law that people don't like, people have the right to go and protest. Okay, so I think this is like something that we do, and this is also the strength of democracy. Democracies need to be strong to protect themselves. Next point is the future of regional alliances and the role of international cooperation. So they're important. In Ukraine, we understand that, I know, for example, that ASEAN can also play a bigger role. Diverse countries, different countries, but still, this is an example of local unions, coalitions within which you can closely cooperate to fight back threats together, especially if you share the same region, the same problems. Very important. Okay. To finish off, because I'm sorry for speaking too quickly, probably, but because I want to have some time for discussion. Of course. The future of Russia and what type of Russia would be safe to its neighbors. I mentioned this issue a couple of times from the very beginning. I do believe that Russia has a right to change. I also believe that nations within Russia, especially people who live there locally, have the right to become independent, and we Ukrainians should support that. And all countries that have this experience of, like as I mentioned, like in Surabaya, this hotel was taking the Dutch flag. It was interesting. Oh yeah, and I'm now speaking about Surabaya. What I liked there was rawon soup. I really loved it. It's very nice. Okay, and in my second week in Indonesia, I learned what does it mean to kurang pedas. But of the second week, I started eating local food. It was fine. Okay, but rawon, I would definitely like it. You cannot get it in Ukraine, unfortunately. But dear colleagues, to sum up my speech, I started saying that we did not expect this war to be like that Russia would bomb us with drones and missiles, hit our infrastructure. The problem with Russia inside is also why this was. That's why I showed you, I decided to show you the children on the knees making the Z sign. It's also not acceptable, it's inappropriate. I showed you this disbalance of how we have to treat Russian prisoners of war according to Geneva Convention, and we are controlled by our Western allies, and how Russia treats our prisoners of war. This sexual violence used against, this is unacceptable. And I also mentioned that in order for the world to change the result of this war and to prevent other wars, we need to change international organization, the world architecture of security. One of my suggestions is to bring more diversity, especially, and I repeated it many, many times because I'm fascinated by Indonesia, is this we really need to abolish colonialism and imperialism all around the globe, and to have countries that have this experience of fighting for their independence, for their nation building, is one of the ways to make it happen. Terima kasih banyak. So I'm ready to answer your questions.
Terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much, Dr. Maxim Yakovlev, for your wonderful presentation. So, for all the participants, I understand that the dominant narration that's going on about the war in Ukraine is mostly Russian. So, Russian propaganda, Russian narration was the still become the, how to say it, the major narration that's present in Indonesia here. And from what I observed, that majority of Indonesian people loves the narration of love, heroism and patriotism narration. So I think it explains why Indonesian citizens, a lot of Indonesian citizens still support Russia in this case. But however, I have to say for you, all the participants, it is up to you whether to support Russia or Ukraine. It is your choice, but please remember that in this kind of situation, you have to take a position as if that you are the victim of the oppression, just like Dr. Maxim Yakovlev said. So you have to be more sympathize with the victim, and you have to side with the humanity in this case instead of the heroism and also patriotism narration. So because Dr. Maxim Yakovlev have to leave early, I open for the question and answer session. Please, for you guys who have any question, especially for Dr. Maxim Yakovlev, you could raise your hand and open your camera and ask directly.
Excuse me, is my voice heard? Okay, thank you so much for the presentation and explanation, Mr. Maxim and Mr. Dimitrio. It was a very insightful explanation. My name is Francesca, and I'm a graduate also from the Department of International Relations in Diponegoro University. And my thesis is also personally about the Russian and Ukrainian war. So I've been delving deeper a little bit, obviously with the limitations of information, especially because like Mr. Maula said, and Professor Maxim and Dimitri have also said that I really found myself having a hard time in accessing information and actually differentiating between which one is propaganda and which one is the truth. So that's like one major challenge that I encountered myself. But I generally have two questions for both presenters and speakers. The first thing is, how do Ukrainians actually feel about their relationship with Russians? Because when we see President Putin's speeches and in whatever forum, we can always see that he always emphasizes about the relationship that Russia has with Ukraine relating to its history, bound by the same blood, ancestor, and so on. And I really want to delve deeper into what Ukrainians actually think about that, because that's like just from the Russians' point of view. Whereas at one point itself, I also look back on the Crimean annexation, where there has been a revolution of some sort, and the Ukrainians also voted in some sense. Yeah, so that's my first question regarding the Ukrainian point of view about the relationship it has with Russians. And the second question is regarding the agreement that Vladimir Putin always emphasizes in an agreement in 1990. Well, I'm not sure which kind of argument, which agreement he particularly emphasizes on, but when I do a deeper research, it came back to the German reunification and the discussion between the major powers back then with German, with French, and so on. And there was a little bit of discussion about the West, about NATO not expanding 1 inch to the east. So I'm kind of curious about how true that agreement is and the context of that agreement, because when I read deeper about that agreement, there's some sort of debate regarding the context of the agreement and so on. And I might understand what Russia might think about this agreement, but I'm very curious about how Ukrainians also view this agreement, because it's been like a major factor in Russians' behavior and foreign policy towards Ukraine. I guess that's two of my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dimitro and Dr. Maxim. Do you want to directly respond to this question?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Maxim, go ahead, okay?
Oh, thank you, Dmitry. Thank you. Thank you very much for interesting question. Not to take long, because then Dmitry will definitely have something to add, but saying, first, let's start with this thing. When using materials, what I said in my presentation, in Ukraine, we're not always satisfied with these United Nations reports, but there are international organizations who are here and who admit that they reported documented cases, okay? So I think taking these reports is a good idea. And the lady who is worked there, she's not Ukrainian, she's not Russian, so this is reports by international organizations is a good source. So just a general recommendation. And of course, in Ukraine, we make this joke, if Russian representatives of Minister of Foreign Affairs are saying something, they are lying. This is our Ukrainian position. Of course, you don't need to respect our position, but this is, fact-checking is something we Ukrainians do a lot. And then we tell Europeans, like Western Europeans, because they believe that everything Russia says is true. Putin, when he invaded Crimea with his army, he said, our soldiers are not there. It's just that local self-defense. And then German Minister of Foreign Affairs said, but Putin said that Russia never invaded. After a couple of months, Putin said, yes, we helped to conduct a referendum. These were our soldiers. He admitted, so he lied openly, and then he admitted that he lied. That's it. That's why German, French, Swedish, blah, blah, all these countries' position changed towards Russia, because they saw that Putin and Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign, they openly lie. I mean, this is a problem. If diplomats of that rank, of a big country like that, of course, we can tell that many countries have problems, but I would not expect the Indonesian Minister of Foreign Affairs to lie people into the eyes. Your society would not accept it, honestly. I mean, there are problems. As I said, there might, somebody comes up with a stupid law on local elections somehow and wants his people to be in constitutional court, but then people protest and people do something about it. Not in Russia. This is another problem. Secondly, this idea that there is scary NATO, and this NATO is extending, expanding, taking. This is a very insane idea. Let's imagine ASEAN wants to take in a new country. Let's imagine there's some country in the region, I don't know which one, but this country wants to join ASEAN. And then somebody from Beijing called Jakarta and tells, haha, ASEAN is expanding. It is against Chinese interest. Next day, somebody from Australia, from Canberra calls, ASEAN is expanding. Now, what would be the position of ASEAN? This country wants to join our organization. It's not that we are expanding. They came to us. They want to join ASEAN. It's not that in Jakarta or, I don't know, somewhere in your region, people decide to expand this agreement. The same with NATO. Baltic states came to Brussels, where there is the headquarters of NATO, said, please take us in. It is not that somebody from Brussels went to Riga, Tallinn, and Vilnius saying, you are now part of NATO. This is the other way around. With my example is ASEAN. If there is a country in the region who wants to join your regional alliance, that would be them coming to you, asking, and then ASEAN countries would sit together and decide. I'm not sure about the procedure. So it is not that it is not that from Brussels, the scary Europeans and scary Americans, now Baltic states, you should be part of. Shut up, we just take you in. No. This is the other way. The same with Ukraine. In Ukraine with NATO membership, I refer you to the public opinion polls. Even in 2014, for the first time in 2014, the majority of Ukrainians wanted to join NATO. Before 2014, membership of NATO was not a popular idea in Ukraine. These are the results of the public opinion poll. Why? Because 2014, Putin invaded. I was born and I went to school in the city of Donetsk. In the city of Donetsk itself, so I'm from the east of Ukraine. My city is occupied and I have relatives there, so I'm from that part of Ukraine, from the east. Okay, so and even the public opinion changed because 2014 Putin came and invaded. Ukrainians said, we want to join any organization that would protect us from Putin's Russia. So this is logical. In our part of the world, there is European Union and there is NATO, of course. Okay, so this is attitudes towards Russians. Good question. Of School for Policy Analysis, I'm director of School for Policy. As you heard, we commission public opinion polls in Ukraine every year. Our attitudes to Russians is very bad. It's, I mean, majority we did not expect. In the first weeks of invasion, there was this idea: if in Ukraine we tell Russians, because many have family, I don't have families in Russia, but many have some relation. If we tell Russians what Putin does and his army does to Ukraine, I mean, maybe people in Russia would change their opinion. It never happened. We realized that Russian society is so oppressed, it's brainwashed, it really wants this war to happen. So about our historical ancestry, this is another thing. I mean, we in Ukraine are tired of being told the smaller brothers of Russians. Okay, I mean, how long can you tell that I mean, this is kakak and this is not, I mean, you cannot go with like, you cannot put this family relationship on explaining this. I mean, so you should address them like this and this. I mean, this is insane. So attitude is bad. About historical legacy. If you go into Ukrainian history, it's true. Russia occupied part of Ukraine. Ukraine was part of two empires. Dmitro is from the part of Ukraine that was occupied by another empire, Austro-Hungarian. I'm from the part that was occupied by Russian Empire. We were under two empires' rules and blah, blah. Russia makes this claim that Kyiv, the city I'm in, I've been living in Kyiv since 1999, so that this city is part of their legacy. In Ukraine, we say, no, 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 no. This is Ukraine. I mean, this is Ukrainian. Okay. And I know that in Indonesia, you have another historical debate. But what you can really feel in Indonesia is different, that you have your own history of strong, like Majapahit Empire, okay? You have strong legacies and the role of Java in particular, I mean, and all these ideas. I mean, this is, you have an understanding what historical legacy is. Imagine, I don't know, Dutch are probably a bad example, but if any other nation would come to, no, but Majapahit is not an Indonesian story. It is our story. And go, how come? I mean, this was here on our land. I mean, we were part of it. So this is example of what we should say. Sorry for keeping a bit long, but to sum up, for material, I refer, please use United Nations reports. There is also Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. You can use their reports. It's true. Then in Ukraine, we have a lot of public opinion surveys. DIF, Democratic Initiative Foundation, DIF, in my School for Policy Analysis, we conduct regularly. Attitudes towards Russians. This is another thing that I would refer to. Historical legacy is totally another thing, but in Ukraine we say it is not normal. I mean, to claim our legacy as yours, because, okay, side note, the Dutch embassy is very close to my university, just across 1 block from here. And we have a new ambassador of the Dutch. And I had a meeting with the political department, and there was a lady, she's culture attaché. And I said that in Jakarta, we met to the Culture Council and Gallery, and I said that we asked Indonesians if the Dutch return cultural heritage that they took from you when they were. And she says, yes, in the Netherlands, it is the policy of the state to return cultural artifacts to Indonesia. One of the things I like about Indonesia, I enjoyed wayang kulit very much. Kulit, sorry. You can see it. So this is, sorry, the blood deep brown. So just example of these dolls that they returned. So yeah, I went to Kota Tua in the old part of Jakarta to the museum. So it's a very nice experience. This is that Russia never did. Russia never returned cultural artifacts to the countries it conquered as an empire. So, I mean, this is another. In Indonesia, it's okay that your former colonizers return what they've taken from. Russia, I repeat, never. They even don't think that it's necessary. Even though in Ukraine, we believe that if you invade a neighboring country, you should. So, but thank you for writing about this war. Ms. Francesca, I wish you good luck with your studies. If Dmitro and I would definitely accept, you can take our emails. If we can somehow help you, we would do this. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maxim.
I just want to compliment what Maxim presented. So I don't have specific something to add. I just wanted brief mentioning that this so-called agreement between NATO and Russia is a fake. So it has never conducted, because NATO has a real structure, and it has so-called the Center for for Information and Documentation that is present in different countries. And especially, so yesterday, actually, I was have a class together with Indonesian colleagues, and we have the joint class, and we have actually the former head, Barbara Moronkova, who was leading the center in Ukraine for almost 5 years. And the case is how NATO is operating, that all the agreements that are conducted, they are documented. So there's official agreement, and there is no official agreement. And there is no official agreement that nothing was agreed and signed. Otherwise, it could be done when something probably could be negotiated, then it appears in a strategy. There was no strategy. So if you check all the strategies, NATO strategies since 90s, it was never stated that. So then it's just fake news. So try to search in official agreements or in strategies.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dimitrio.
Well, fun fact, Russia is the one who were established strategic partnership relation with NATO back in 1991. And may I ask further question, sir? When I read the foreign policy concept of the Russian Federation from 1991 and 2003, 2008, till the latest one, 2016, the relations between Russia and the West, in this case NATO and the EU, still quite good until at least 2008, and afterward, in the foreign policy concept, they started to mention the West, especially NATO and EU, as adversary, not necessarily adversary, but as a different side from Russia in terms of foreign policy. So, do you think the problem with Russia is not actually the Russian itself, but the figure of Vladimir Putin?
Dmitro, I think you can start now.
Yeah, so I will ask to start, because unfortunately I also need to run for a meeting like in a few minutes. So there are different approaches, like to how to see the foreign policy analysis. One of the ideas is definitely to see on the people. Yeah, that's quite true. However, this approach is checked by the number of things, and if we check the problem of concrete people or a person, or is it like the policy, overall policy, we should check like some of the documents, and later on we should also check the people's behavior. So we use behavioral sciences to check and what is the case. And we can see definitely that in terms of the Russian aggressive policy, this is not only about the Ukrainian case. So we can observe a number of other countries that were located in on the territory of former Soviet Union. And I mentioned them. So this is Moldova, this is Chechnya, for example, that was presented as an entirely domestic case and as a war of terrorism, and the period when we have the global war with terrorism. We also have Georgia. We had the cases of later of like the Syrian even invasion and present. So this is not only like Ukrainian story, and definitely that influenced the military doctrines that I also partly mentioned. So you can go around and see the military doctrine, so you can check if they have changed, and you will see this change. So first of all, this is the dramatic change from the beginning of the military and foreign policy doctrine of Russia, that they were stating more like the global issues that should be taken into account, and they want to be more present there, like democratic development, so on and so forth. But after Georgia, and especially after the famous Munich speech by Mr. Putin, that's dramatic change. We don't see that. There's absolutely other direction, mentioning like how Russia should be building the new world. So and later how it corresponds with the people will, because at the end of the day people are deciding. That's actually we see it in the level of support. And we see at the level of, even if you don't believe in Russian sociology, don't believe once again in Russian sociology, but nevertheless, we see the people support, and we also see people protest, that Indonesians, if you don't agree, you go to the protest. And if you check all the Russian protests, you will see zero protests against their international behavior. Every protest was about like personal rights. Every protest was about like economic freedoms and so on and so forth. Nothing about international behavior. So I do believe this is an answer. It's not just Mr. Putin.
Thank you. I think I would start with the Russian state ideology. Now, again, minta maaf, saya tidak berbicara bahasa Java, but I know that on your Garuda symbol it says Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Yes. So this, sorry again, my Javanese.
That's actually Sanskrit, sir.
Yeah, okay, but oh yeah, Sanskrit. Okay, because Bhinneka, it's like Sandhi, Bhin and Eka. Okay, this is again. I just mentioned the influence of other empires in Indonesia, what the islands that you're composed. But this Bhinneka Tunggal Ika is an example that your state ideology is totally different and to what Russia as an empire has inside it. Because I do understand we can discuss about different, the nation building of Indonesia is different to Russian, of course, but there was never an idea in Russia, even an idea, that you can create somehow something like as a unity where parts should have their rights and be equal. It is all about Russians, as ethnic Russian, the Slavic people, really dominating and oppressing the other. So for example, if you go to other parts of Russia, you don't have to study local language, local culture. You can do it with Russia. And this is a big problem because in Indonesia, you see the present. Of course, I mentioned Denpasar because I went to Dayana University. I know that Aksara Java looks very nice and Aksara Bali also there, but you at least have this as a present and nobody would forbid people talking to each other. So Suksemu is something I learned there. Unfortunately, as my Javanese is very basic and I'm afraid of making a mistake and offending people because the language is so complicated in terms of politeness, but it's still there. You can feel it, you can see it, the present. In Russia, this idea that everything should be turned into Russian. And that's why I mentioned Asians of Russia, because they have not, sorry, they don't look Slavic. I mean, they look like Asians from different parts of the world. Caucasian nations like Chechens and Dmitro mentioned, and Adigi and I don't know, Dagestans, all those people who are there. Russia has, for example, the only nation within Europe, Kalmyks, who are actually Buddhists. Okay? So and these are in Russia, there was a scandal that out of Buddha head, they're making pots for toilet brushes. It was a scandal because it offends the Buddhist population. They have lived there for thousands, I mean, hundreds of years. Okay, you see? So this is a problem with Russia. It's not about Putin because this is about imperial mindset. That's why I mentioned the Dutch. I do understand the Dutch colonized the world and they have to apologize for it. The French, they have their own history of colonialism. The British, of course, please, they did. I've heard these jokes about Singapore being colonized by their own colonizers and who colonized whom by which means. I mean, this is a different situation, okay? And this is a story why in the Netherlands you don't speak Dutch anymore. This is a colonial policy, so different. But all these countries finally arrived at the position, empire was bad, we have to apologize, we have to return what we have stolen. In Russia, it never happened, never happened. Another problem with Russia is, for example, they never repent for war crimes. Stalin, this is public opinion polls, and I trust them. Stalin is seen as the most prominent figure in Russian history, not Pushkin, Lermontov, or any writer or any scientist. Stalin. I mean, this guy is very controversial. this love for dictatorship, second point, take a look whom Putin supports across the globe. If there is a dictator somewhere in the world, Putin will support him. I mean, this is crazy. So answering your question is that Russia needs to change from inside. And there are people in Russia who won't, if not independence, I'm not telling that Russia should, fall apart, become independent. But if it is a federation, people need to have their rights within this federation. Okay, so this is another. And Putin always says that he is disappointed because West treated him badly. They promised him something and they never delivered. I mean, West really wanted Russia to be integrated into the Western civilization. But Western civilization means a set of rules, and Putin doesn't want to play by those rules. Respect for human rights, abolishing colonialism, returning what you have stolen. You see, Putin never does it. It's very bad, very bad.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer, Dr. Dimitro and Dr. Maxim. Seems like that Muhammad Inzamam Khan have raised his hand.
Yeah, I
For
have
Muhammad.
question. Yeah, I have question for both Professor Maxim, Dr. Maxim, and Metro. I'm not an IR student. I'm in lab, so due to privacy, I have not opened my camera. So I will be asked the question, enough camera question from you guys, from both presenter. So my question is related to the perspective regarding, I'm not an IR student, but I'm interested in current affair a lot. So what could be the final resolution to Russian-Ukraine war that currently we are seeing, and how might the international players such as China, America, and other countries we have will be influence the outcome to ensuring the lasting peace? Because currently, if we saw it in other side, Russia is also they are standing on their own point of view, and Ukraine on their own. So how will be the peace emerge from this scenario? I'm worrying about a lot on this. So thank you.
Maybe you could answer the question.
I know Dmitro knows the answer, but it's very complicated questions.
Yeah, that's very complicated. Thank you so much, Muhammad, for this question. But it's really complicated. In conflict studies, we usually say that such type of conflicts are overheated, and by overheated, we mean that both powers are considering the subject of the conflict to be still present. They don't see that the conflict could be resolved, so they will find to some joint idea how it could be, what could be the resolution that is acceptable by the both parties. And finally, they do believe that they have enough power, both military and economy, still to win. And we see right now that this is the case for us both. So both Russia and both Ukraine believes in that. So that prevents for any of these possible negotiations. Does it mean that the negotiations are impossible at all? No, that doesn't mean, because we can have the influence of the third parties, especially now we see Western countries, or like we see also proposals from China or from Brazil or from other countries, how we can put like Ukraine and Russia into the table to negotiate. But the only trouble is that there should be some common background on how to negotiate. And the tragedy of the situation is that when Ukraine proposed international law to be the common background, Russia is not behaving in that sense, because they see the implementation of international law as a danger. Yes, to do the next steps. So they apply to the law of war, to the logic of war, to the logic of what they have achieved. during the war, so that's logic, but not the international law in that sense. And that's mean that any efforts of the third parties are actually impossible to implement because we have different visions of what could be in the background. So the only option by now is, unfortunately, the military option. So those power who will show, so this party of the war, who will show more military gains, and those party who will show more economical and social strengths, yes, can prevail. And unfortunately, the dynamics of the conflict and many of the international conflicts statistics and data is showing that the fast wars are usually ending up to 3 years. After that, they're long-lasting wars, because once again, parties are usually too much prioritize what is important about that. So I do to make the long story short. What I want to say that what could be done is the change of behavior either of Ukraine or of Russia. And if we want to have like this just peace, if you want to use the just peace concept, that is a part of the international thinking and international law thinking about how we can resolve the wars, how we can resolve the wars. That means that we should rely on some of the international norms. So the only possible thing is to change Russian thinking and Russian attitude towards conducting the negotiations. And we do believe that it could be done when Russian economy will be weak and the war become really, really difficult for them. But unfortunately, that means that in the military scale, we need to keep this balance, because it's hard for Ukrainians to keep this balance, but nevertheless, we are still keeping this military balance. So this is the answer to this question. So it takes time. Different parties should be involved, but we should find the only reason and the only platform that could be done is actually the implementation of the international law. And for this, we need to persuade Russia that they need to behave in that terms.
But for the economy that you mentioned, that if the economy is weakened, but for the economy currently, China and Iran and some other countries are backing up Russia. So I think so it will be difficult currently for Russia to weaken their economy, because they have a strong support from the other neighboring country.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's why it is important if all the countries indeed, including China, including other countries, even including the authoritarian regimes, so they want to settle this war, so that they should influence the decision making, showing that it will be much more expensive for Russia to do and to continue this war. That's the only reason how we can behave. But currently, unfortunately, you're quite right. We see a number of, in the sanction policy, we have a number of the problems. So we have a number of the gray zones. So a lot needs to be done.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry, because Mas Maula said that Bhinneka Tingalika was Sanskrit, and I was sure it was taken from Kakavin Sutasoma, which was written in Old Javanese. So I had to check it. And it seemed that it's Old Javanese, of course, with Sanskrit influence, because with Indonesians, have to check if I'm not lying. But it seems that this is the Kavi, the Old Javanese anyway. But answering, Muhammad, your question, thank you very much. I do understand that when we Ukrainians say, and we say to our Western allies, we need more weapons, first we need to protect ourselves. Because what Dmitro said, when Russians hit the missiles and drones, and you shoot them back, there are nights when I sleep in my bathroom because there is rule of 2 walls. If there is a drone and it hits your building, you need to have 2 walls. So, and I live in Kiev, in the district that was hit a lot of times. This is Lukyanivka, that was hit a lot of times. So we need weapons to defend ourselves. This is first. Russia is more powerful in terms of weapons and people they can mobilize. It's true. So military support is very important. A. B, what we really want for justice. I did not touch this topic, but a big thing is in Ukraine is returning kidnapped children. Russian soldiers in the occupied areas kidnapped children whom they forcefully removed to Russia to indoctrination camps. And this is horrible. It's impossible to imagine that this is happening in Europe and in Eurasia now. So we want justice by having our children returned to Ukraine, having prisoners of war returned to Ukraine, and on the occupied territories of Ukraine, there are people who are forcefully given Russian passports. Why? If you live in the occupied territory of Russia, you are not given any services like medical services, or even if there is like floods, those who did not receive Russian passports were not rescued during the floods in the south of Ukraine. So this is a big problem because people were forcefully made Russian citizens. It is violation of all international law. That's why in Ukraine, we're developing a lot of plans. What should we do? Because we understand that people had no choice. They were given Russian passports, forcefully made Russian citizens, but they are our citizens and we need to take them back. We need to have our people returned who are in Russian captivity. This is another thing. In the future, we also want all artifacts, museums, and stuff returned to Ukraine because Russians just stole it. This is wrong. Of course, because I said Russia, if Russia changes, it would be able to repay for the damage it caused to Ukraine. Russia destroyed a lot of things in Ukraine. I mean, buildings, churches, mosques, incredible. So we really want Russia to pay for that. And this is an example of other countries. At this point now, Ukraine, we need to survive as a country. Survival of the country means that Kyiv as a capital still stands. Russians did not manage to invade Kyiv, and we are happy. It never happened. So, and I believe I support everything that Dmytro said. We need more support to be able to sustain. And of course, we have winter ahead of us. And this is why it is extremely important that we also survive during the winter time, which is important. Thank you. Maybe I can take one more question.
I agree. I agree with you, Professor, totally in this regard, because I've heard the news a lot, France TV and other stuff on YouTube and listening podcasts related to the current scenario which is going on in Russia and Ukraine. But for the first time, I hear the insight from a Ukrainian, the way you explain everything to us. So it's now clear for me. My perspective is now more clear. So thank you for your insightful information. Thank you.
Okay. Terima kasih also for asking questions. Thank you.
Mr. Maula, I want
Oh, okay. So is it okay, sir?
Yeah,
So,
as to Mr. Maxim. Okay,
Okay, go
thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Maula. Mr. Maxim is really great insight. My name is Ida Bagus Arya Barata. You can call me Arya. I'm from Bali. I'm from Undiksha, Indonesia. So that is interesting. When you, I don't know, if you really can compare an economic alliance to a military alliance. When you told us ASEAN, if other country maybe joining ASEAN, maybe China will piss off. But in the case of NATO, I think NATO is a defensive alliance here. It's a military alliance, and not like an EU. EU is European Union is basically mostly economic, as I know. Can you really compare that? It have a same influence, gitu. But even though I think I can understand why Ukrainian is really want to join NATO, because the Russian is annexed the apa namanya, the region in the south, the apa tuh namanya,
Crimea,
yeah, Crimea, annexed Crimea, and also supporting the separatist group in the Donetsk and Luhansk. So I guess I can understand it, but maybe Ukraine also feel threatened by the Russian aggressions throughout years. But is it really? I think it cannot be compared economic alliance to military alliance. But I don't know. Can you maybe give me an insight? And
okay,
also have other question in the chat. When you talk about can the next UN add a new member to Security Council because it need a balance of power, gitu. What would be the indicator or the component, gitu? Maybe that was the second question. If biar apa namanya?
Okay.
I'm not forgetting.
Terima kasih for that. Okay,
Yes,
so
Wali.
answer. Okay, I agree with you that comparing NATO, the European Union, ASEAN, European Union would be a more feasible comparison. First, you mentioned 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea, and I really refer to the very nice book by Yunardi Shukur, Islam in Crimea. Very good. It's short but good because Yanuardi, he traveled to Kiev. I met him last year. And actually, I'm inviting colleagues from Universitas Internacional Bali to come to Kiev. I hope they will come at the end of October. They're now doing Ukrainian visa, so hopefully it works out. So anyway, answering your question, Yanukovych, the former president of Ukraine, and all the Euromaidan protests when Putin invaded, the Russia invaded Crimea, happened because our president refused to sign association agreement with the European Union, not with NATO. Yanukovych did not want to sign association agreement, not a membership agreement. And I am the person who went on the streets to protest. My university was very active. And again, this was European Union membership, but Russia didn't want us to join the European Union. Secondly, this is a history, it's open. So if you read about Euromaidan or Revolution of Dignity, it happened because Yanukovych decided not to sign association agreement with the European Union, not NATO. Second point, I refer to public opinion. Until 2014, NATO was not popular among Ukrainians to join. We wanted to join the European Union. We still want to. It is in our constitution that membership in NATO and the European Union is our strategic goal, but it was not there. Secondly, even within the European Union, I'm not very much familiar with the structure of the ASEAN, but within the pacts of the European Union, there is a thing that is called joint security policy and foreign policy. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Denmark, small country Denmark, it had opt-outs from the common European Union. One of them was called defense policy. So Denmark, when joined European Union, said we're not participating in joint defense. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Denmark had a referendum to cancel that opt-out and to join defense policy of the European Union. So there is a component of defense to the European Union. It's true. Now, European Union, for example, imposes sanctions. And for the first time in its history, European Union is paying money for military means to Ukraine. This is the first time. They're giving money to the military means. I don't know how in ASEAN it works. It's a bit different, but this is how European Union works. Now, Russia, after 2014, Russia had very bad attitude to NATO all the time. But after 2014, Russians now have hostile attitude towards the European Union. It is a change in attitude. So this is public opinion polls Russia publishes. It's not me inventing. So to sum up this answer, yes, but things started with Ukraine, with our president, and we then got rid of Yanukovych fled. We got rid of him. So, and he was not the president of my choice anyway. So even though he's from the region I come from the east of Ukraine. Secondly, as I said, European Union has this component. It's not that strong. And NATO is a defense alliance. There's no other option. Okay. Regarding the United Nations security, there are many, the dissertations written how to reform the Security Council. I say that it needs to be bigger, more permanent member, not like 5 and plus 10, not permanent, and 5 more. Secondly, we need to do something with veto power. If Russia and China vetoes everything, how can you work? I mean, it's impossible. Maybe there should be like qualified majority, 2/3. Maybe there is a right to abolish the veto by General Assembly. There needs to be new rules of the game. But the basic idea with the United Nations, the day it was created after the Second World War, the next day it was already old. Because countries started fighting for the independence, nations against the colonizers. So at the very next day, it was outdated already. And I support those scholars who say it should have been changed after the Cold War, because Cold War was also a change in the world, the situation. Okay, so maybe like that. I hope it will happen one day. Let's see, because this is now a window of opportunity. We need to do changes. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maxim Yakovlev and Ida Bagus Arya. Seems like that the time is up for the session. Thank you very much for Dr. Maxim Yakovlev for your wonderful insight that you shared to us, and also for Dr. Dimitro Serengovsky. Unfortunately, he has left the room because he has something else to do. But
Mas Maula and
thank
all
you very much.
students, please don't
Yes.
be offended because I personally mixed up the time zones. Because we have winter and the summer time zones, I thought, so my problem was I mixed the time. So I'm very minta maaf for that. But it was very nice talking to you. You are a very active audience. Mas Maula, you are a great moderator, very insightful. I'm grateful you organize
Thank you very
everything
much.
well. The people who contacted me very well. And I hope you would be also willing to join our conferences when we organize something. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. We are looking forward for to attend the course in Ukraine, maybe.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I'm leaving. Wish you all a very, very nice evening in your case. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih banyak. Okay, I'll give it back to the MC.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Maula, for leading the panel discussion. The material is very enlightening combined with the wonderful presentations. I believe that all of the students here, including me, have gained a lot of new knowledge and insight about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Since we have much insightful knowledge delivered by Mr. Dimitrios Serengovsky and Mr. Maxim Yakovlev, however, before we continue our agenda, we need some kind of relaxations to refresh our mind. What do you think about that, Danny?
Of course. Okay, I totally agree. All right, everyone. After that fantastic discussion, let's take a quick break and refresh our minds with a fun icebreaker session.
I agree with you. How can we play any games together with the participants?
Yeah, it sounds fascinating, girl. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Let's play some games in IRUD Summer Course Games 2024. Fasten your belts and get ready to compete with your fellow students for the games. Today, we will be playing Jeopardy. My partner will read out the rules that will be used during the game.
Okay, everyone. You'll see the Jeopardy board with different categories and point values. The students will be given 10 seconds to think and to guess the answer. The MC will be in charge of leading the game, and the committee will be in charge of monitoring whoever answered the fastest, but also correctly. The student with the most correct answers will be the winner.
Okay, everyone, are you ready? Please give us some reaction.
Let's go.
Let's go. Give us some love and thumbs up. Okay, I think everyone is ready here. Okay,
Of course they are.
Let's go.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so before we started, we just to make sure that we will choose the fastest from you guys who raised the hand. Okay, so raise your hand, the fastest, and we will choose you.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
Raise your hand, guys.
please raise your
Please
hand.
raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Raise your hand, guys.
Please do.
Please. Okay, there's a lot of subject in here, yeah. International
As you can see, guys, oh my God,
organization.
this is so interesting,
Yes.
you know, and this is so necessary for you. This is your chance to shine.
Okay.
Okay, since that nobody hasn't raised their hands yet, maybe we will like
Choose one subject. Okay, for the example.
For example.
Okay.
You don't understand? Okay. We will tell you. Okay.
Okay, how
Don't worry.
about we choose
Pop culture.
Okay, pop culture. Okay, the comedy, please. Pop culture. Which 500 scores?
Okay, let's go big or go home.
Okay.
Oh, but this will be go in vain though. Maybe yang 100.
Okay,
100.
100. Okay, 100 comedy, please.
Because it's just for example, right?
What is the name of the fictional African nation in the movie Black Panther?
This is our country, you know.
Okay.
This is Wakanda.
Okay.
Is it the answer?
Oh, this is the example. Huh?
Yeah, this is the example.
So this is the answer. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the example, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, after this, you guys will,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
That's I told. This is our country, Wakanda.
Okay.
Now you guys understand, right?
Now you
What
guys
to do?
Okay.
Okay,
Do
now
you guys
after
understand?
this, I want you guys to raise your hand, and we will choose the fastest one, the
If
quickest
you
one.
still don't understand, please let me know through the chat box.
Yeah,
We can explain it.
just feel free, guys. Come on, it's just you and.
Yes.
Okay.
Raise your hand, guys, and
Raise
choose
your
category.
hand.
Come on.
It's fun.
It's so fun.
I promise you.
Yes.
I promise you guys.
No one.
It's your time to shine.
Yes. You will get the points. Of course, you will get the point. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go, guys.
You
Raise
guys
your
understand,
hand.
right?
Yes.
Just choose what you want and answer.
Okay.
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 No one hasn't raised their hands yet. I can't believe this.
We will wait for 5 seconds. How about
Okay.
that? Okay.
Let's count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. No. No
Still
one.
no.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh my God.
okay,
I'm
Ida
so
bagus.
proud of you.
Okay. Ida bagus. You can unmute your microphone and choose what
choose.
subject and what point do you want.
Maybe geography 300.
Oh, okay, 400.
100.
Oh, 100?
400.
300.
300.
300,
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
Play it safe. Geography 300.
Okay, what country is the largest by land area in the world? You can answer it.
You should know.
10 seconds.
You should know though.
Yeah, Russia. Maybe.
Russia.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Are you sure? Do you want to change
Is
your
this your final answer?
answer?
Yeah, Russia.
Okay.
Right.
Obviously.
Yes.
Must be.
Ah!
Okay.
Okay, congratulations.
Let's go. You did
Okay,
good.
so you got 300 points. Okay.
Kudos to you.
Oh.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone
Next.
else?
Okay, next.
Okay,
Who
maybe
want to
let's count,
Okay.
count down. Oh,
Five.
congrats. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. No one. Okay. Ida
You okay?
Okay.
Come on, guys. This is.
Come on, guys.
Don't let him shine alone. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. But
Okay, yeah.
Ida, you can unmute your.
Microphone again.
Okay. Feel free though.
Feel free.
Oh,
Okay,
I can?
Ida.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Maybe nation or state 500 score.
Nation.
Okay.
It's a big
Nations
point.
and states 500. It is.
500. 500.
500.
Yeah, 500.
Okay.
What country?
What country was formerly known as Ceylon and is located off the southeastern coast of India?
Okay, you have 10 seconds to think and let me know
It
what's
should
your
be Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Sri Lanka? Are you
Are you
sure?
sure? Do you want to
Yeah,
change?
yeah. It should be Sri
Okay.
Lanka. South.
That's pretty
Southeast.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're taking a risk though. It's just 500 points, you know?
Southeastern coast of
Okay.
India. Yeah.
Okay.
It must be Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Okay.
Sri Lanka it is. So.
Okay.
Wow! 500. Wow,
Wow,
that's crazy.
yes.
That's wild, boy.
Okay, let's next move. Yeah.
Come on, guys. Don't be
guys.
shy.
Yes.
It's just us. It's just between us.
Should we start the counting it? Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay.
Come on,
Come
everyone.
on, everyone.
No need to be shy with us because we're shameless anyway.
Yes. Okay, maybe we can change the mechanism so everyone can get the point.
Okay.
Maybe we will choose the subject and the point. So for you guys who know the answer,
You
please
can type the answer.
from through the chat box.
Okay. What about that?
Okay.
Okay.
What topic or what subject?
Okay. Salma, what should we choose?
History or
History.
History.
Kayaknya,
History, yeah.
No one has a
okay,
choose that one.
history for 300.
Let's play it safe. 300.
Okay, history 300 committee. Thank you. So the question is, what year did World War II end? Okay, please type your answer. Quick, quick. The fastest one will get. Let's go.
Let's go.
What year?
Please be quick, guys.
Be quick, guys. Come on.
This is your time to shine.
Yes, just give us your answer through the chat box.
Quick.
Okay, quick. Let's go, guys.
Come on.
Let's go.
Google does exist. Okay, we have an answer here.
From Putri Octaviana.
Is it
1945? Is it right?
Is it correct?
Is it correct?
No other answers.
No other
Come on,
answers,
guys.
Be
Come on.
competitive with other fellow students. Come on. Okay.
Okay, there.
Oh!
Congrats.
Congrats,
Putri
Putri
Octaviana.
You got 300. Okay.
Good job, girl.
Maybe let's next to another question.
Okay.
Okay. I think international organizations.
Yes, because we are international relations students.
Okay. International organizations for 400 or 5.
Maybe 400.
400. Okay. International organizations 400.
Okay.
Okay.
What global organization is tasked with coordinating the response to health emergencies like the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's easy, right?
Come on. Everyone should know this already.
Yeah.
So type in the answer.
Whoa. Okay. Nabila.
Okay.
Nabila Indah. I think
Nabila Indah dong.
Nabila Indah. Okay, it's the first one.
Okay, but let's see. Is it actually correct?
Okay, the answer is ding drum roll.
Wow! Let's go!
Okay, congratulations for Nabila Indah. Okay, I think we already reached last question.
Last question already? Come on. I could do this all day.
Okay.
So sad. But come on.
Okay. Pop culture?
Pop culture for 500.
Okay. Pop culture for 500. Please come in. What 2023 movie became one of the highest grossing films of all time, directed by the director. Okay,
Him.
Meow.
Meow. Everyone should know this. Come on.
Okay.
Meow. Come on.
Come on, guys. Come on, guys.
Please, guys. Come on.
Guys.
It's so easy. Meow.
Meow. Is it Barbie?
Is it your final
Titania Lira.
Is it your final answer? Come on, be sure.
Okay. 500 points.
Okay.
Are you sure for the Barbie? Titania Lira.
Okay. So
the answer is drum roll.
Meow.
Congratulations.
Titania Lira.
Okay. Congratulations to all of you guys, and thank you for participating for this session. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, thank you for this session. Okay. I think that's it.
Okay,
for
now
this
let's
session.
announce the winner.
Okay,
Wow.
not gonna lie, but this game was really fun. We hope the participant was having fun as well.
Yeah, I
Okay.
actually was having fun.
Okay.
Sincerely. I just, you know what? I could do this all day, you know?
Okay, I agree with you, Daddy. Anyway, we will announce the winner of the game, and I think we already have the name.
Okay.
Okay, will you tell them?
Okay. It will be my pleasure.
Okay.
Congratulations for drum roll, please.
Drum roll, please.
Congratulations, Ida Bagus Arya.
What do I get? What do I get?
With 800 point
Wow.
score. Wow, that's a number. You are the winner of this game session 2 party. Yay! For those who hasn't won yet, okay,
There is
you
no
want to say
present.
something?
Okay.
You want to say something?
There is no present.
We'll see. I can
No,
I can
just
tell
kidding,
you.
just kidding. Yeah, just
Uh,
kidding, just kidding.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay to expect for a present. For those who hasn't win yet, don't worry though. Please take your victory tomorrow for more games and for more challenging events. This is so fun, right?
Yes, I agree with you. And yes, it is. I can feel the joyful here. And I think the participants do like me.
Yeah, of course. That was so fun. Nah, well, that was certainly a fun way to get our minds energized. Okay, now let's dive into the heart of today's session. It's time for the assignment explanation.
Okay.
Okay, now you guys are energized already.
All right, everyone. Listen up, we're diving head first into your final project. For today's session, you need to start building the foundations of your project with a solid structure. First up, we've got the introductions, introduce your topics, give us some context, and connect it back to the main themes of our course. Next, we move into the analysis or discussion section. This is where you map out all your key points and subtopics, like building a roadmap for your chapter. And remember, we want to see at least 40% of the chapter written out.
Okay, let me re-emphasize it that for at least 40% has been written out by. Okay, when you're setting your file, make sure your name is using this format. Your name, underscore, your topic. And finally, the deadline. You need to submit your day to assignment before 12 o'clock p.m. on September 19th. No late submissions. Use the link in the PowerPoint to turn in your work.
All right, we also have an important announcement for the participant here. All the participant should register through website admission link. So you need to register first and then fill out the registration data, including passport number or ID card, email, password, and confirm password. Then choose non-degree summer course to later filling out the registration data according to the form of the program that has been selected. And then select Navigating Global Society through the Terminal World at the column of the Faculty of Social Science and Politics Science. And the last one, there will appear the registration status.
Okay, that's right. By registering yourself on the website registration link, this becomes an additional condition for obtaining the summer course certificate.
Okay.
Don't worry, the committee will send the guideline through your email and your WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the information, Danny.
Okay, now you guys get it right. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally have reached the end of the event. Thank you so much to Mr. Dmytro Serangovsky and Mr. Maxim Yakovlev for the insightful presentation. And thank you for Mr. Maula Hudaya for leading the discussion session.
However, before we close today's agenda, we will take documentations together. So please, for everyone, turn on your camera and give us your best smile. Okay, please turn on your camera, guys.
Please, we want to see your beautiful faces.
Okay, we're counting. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone, I guess, is ready. So
Okay.
for the committee, please screenshot our screen. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you, everyone. Please give
applause for ourselves. Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Now, please don't forget to fill in the link of attendance that has been sent by the committee in the comment section. Also, before we close this event, for the speakers, could you give us any closing statement? Maybe start from...
Okay. Thank you so much for Mr.
Dmitry Timorovsky, for Mr. and also for Mr. Maxim Yakovlev for this unforgettable experience. We are so grateful that we had the chance to get an insightful information from you guys.
Okay, thank you so much for all the speaker and also the moderator. Thank you so much for all the speaker, and on behalf of the organizing committees, I would like to apologize if we have made any mistake throughout the event. We hope today's session will be beneficial for all of us. Once again, thank you everyone for gracing our ceremony with your presence. We truly appreciate it. I wish you have a nice day and see you tomorrow in the next session.
Good day, everyone, and see you tomorrow.